everyone. We have at Сел레나이민 a very special guest today. Let's welcome Mr. Dan Healy, CEO of Civitas Capital Group. Hello.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Mr. Healy, could you please introduce yourself and Civitas Capital Group, please?
Very happy to. My name is Dan Healy. I am the Chief Executive and the founder of Civitas Capital. I founded the company in 2009. We are based in Dallas, Texas. We are a real estate investment management firm. We manage approximately $1 billion for individual investors as well as institutional clients. Of that, we have invested over $700 million of EB-5 capital since our founding. We operate in most of the major markets around the United States. I've completed more than 40 EB-5 investments since our inception in 2009.
Very much experienced in EB-5 industry.
Yes, I'm very proud of our track record in EB-5. We've tried hard to serve as an example of how to do it right.
And I find a very interesting common factors between us. I am an immigrant to U.S. myself, and I heard your family immigrated to U.S. Some time ago. Could you tell us a little bit about your family's immigration history?
Yes, I come from a long line of Irish. I'm actually a dual citizen, born a U.S. citizen, but my father registered me as also a foreign birth with the Irish consulate. So I actually hold an Irish passport in addition to a U.S. passport.
Oh, wonderful.
My family came from Ireland in the 1930s. So immigration has been part of my identity since I was a very young boy.
I see. I'm glad we have a common ground. This is an immigration company after all. We are speaking within. What makes you to be involved in this EB-5 industry, Mr. Healy?
The short answer is my mother. My mom has been a corporate immigration attorney for 30 years.
Wonderful.
Back in 2008, I learned from her that she was working with the city of Dallas municipal government on advising them about EB-5 and how they might be able to use it as an economic development tool. And I learned that she was working on this and just started to look into it. And you probably remember 2008 and 2009 was a very difficult economic time. And so I realized that if I could find a way to pool capital from EB-5 investors, it would create an opportunity to provide some liquidity, some investment capital in a time when there was almost none available in the broader capital market.
Oh, actually, that's a very good time that you entered the EB-5 market because a lot of developers were really suffering from the impact of the financial crisis in 2008. And actually, that's when a lot of good developers started looking into EB-5 capitals, I understand.
That is absolutely right. And, we were very fortunate. Our timing was good.
Right.
I started working on it in late 2008. My partner, my colleague, Rular TEA, who founded the firm with me, it was actually his idea to approach the city of Dallas to create a public-private partnership. And so we did that, and to make an 18-month story short, it took us until toward the end of 2009 to establish the regional center and the partnership with the city and do all of the various legal work and whatnot. But that was a great idea because when we started for the first time to come to Korea and China and Vietnam, other markets, we were able to come as representatives of an official City of Dallas delegation, which really helped people understand us better and become comfortable that even though we were new to EB-5, that this was a serious program that we were sponsoring. And So I have to give Rafael all the credit for that idea because it was not mine.
Oh, that's wonderful because it's the right timing, and also when you work with the city of Dallas, it gives you a lot more credibility in people's mind. People feel more comfortable working with some sort of government as well. So,
yes, it was very helpful.
Right, and I think as a financial company, it is one of the pioneership that you entered the EB-5 and have been doing very well. Yeah?
Thank you. I'm very proud of the firm's track record and growth over that time period. We have now completed upward of 40, close to 50 EB-5 investments, and in that time, the last 14 years or so, of course we've learned a lot, and the environment has changed a lot. And one of the things that I think sets Civitas apart is the depth of our skill set and our ability to not only identify attractive projects, attractive investments up front, but manage them over the long term. Because the EB-5 process, as you know, is not a short process.
Right.
It's very important that there is continuity and stability,
exactly,
along the way.
Yes.
And that's something that I'm very pleased at how we've been able to execute over time.
Right. The next question will be a little long. As you may know, there have been some problems with some EB-5 projects in the past. And in some cases, this has led to some of the clients to be worried. What if they cannot be successfully immigrating through this project? And choosing project therefore became very confusing for a lot of prospective investors. Could you please explain how to pick a very good investment project for EB-5 purposes?
There are a lot of factors, a lot of aspects of a potential investment that we consider, that we evaluate when we're looking at, a prospective investment. I could spend a lot of time, going sort of deeper into many of those. Examples would be its location and the strength of the sponsorship and the job creation associated with the project and many elements. But ultimately, the place to start, in my opinion, is always with the people. It's always with the people, because it's very easy to have a positive experience when everything goes well and there's no issues. You learn whether you have a real partner when there's a problem, and so particularly because EB-5 investors most of the time are primarily motivated by their desire to complete the immigration process successfully. Correct. And to protect their principal, right, as opposed to their desire to earn returns.
Exactly.
That means that as an investment manager, our role, our objective is to put together projects, investments that protect the downside. And that's what we spend a lot of time on.
I see.
And that ultimately is about people. Because when we loan money to a developer, a project sponsor, we obviously have confidence that they can execute on their business plan, or we wouldn't loan them the money.
I see.
But this is real estate development. So there's no such thing as a no-risk investment. There's always risk. Things can always happen.
Of course.
So
that's the essence of investment.
Exactly. And this is actually required,
exactly,
under the EB-5 rules.
True.
So from an investor's perspective, when they're considering, this project versus that one, what I always like to emphasize that we try to do better than anyone, I hope, is provide a level of depth and expertise such that if there's a problem with a project and I have to step in, I have to take it over, or I have to exercise our remedies, then we're not only prepared to do that from a legal process perspective, but if it means I have to step into a project and finish the construction, we're prepared to do that also. And that is less common. I think it's very important.
Yes. So when you are picking an EB-5 project, a lot more consideration is going into selection of that process. On top, you have to consider more factors when you choose EB-5 projects.
Always through the lens of risk mitigation. Always thinking about how we will deal with a problem if it should come up.
Right.
Fortunately, we've been doing this a long time now, and we have had, any number of, problems, some small, some pretty large, that have come up, particularly in the COVID context, for example. We have been called on to take a project over or, deal with something pretty significant. That's when my team shines. That's when we show what we're really about. Fortunately, we don't have to do that very often. But when we do, we have been effective at it.
I see. As a regional center and underwriter, what are some important points to underwriting EB-5 project when you review investment opportunities that are presented to you from real estate development? I guess this question kind of overlaps with the former one, but please point out important and significant points in your mind when you are dealing with the EB-5 project.
So when we get specific, again, starting with the primary objective of completing the immigration process successfully, the first thing that we're looking at is the job creation. We want to make sure that there's enough, that it's going to be sufficient for all of the investors to.
Absolutely, no job, no green card.
Right, so that's the first thing. And ideally, we want there to be flexibility, in how we might get to the job creation, if necessary. That's
there will be always some cushion to lean against. Because
you never know.
Right.
Things could happen. So we want to have some cushion, some margin for error.
Right.
Then moving more toward the financial analysis and the risk, analysis of the project itself, one of the most important things that we focus on is the structure of the investment. The vast majority of the EB-5 investments that we do are in the form of debt, where our new commercial enterprise, our fund, is making a loan to developer.
Project, yes.
Right? And the structure of that loan and the security for that loan is very important. We have, since our inception, we've made over $1 billion worth of loans. And in that time, the loss ratio of that loan portfolio is 0.15%. It's very, very low. And the reason
close to zero.
It's close to zero, right? The reason for that is that we know credit. We're very experienced credit underwriters. And again, when something comes up, we're prepared to deal with it. But it starts with the structure at the beginning. Because if you get the structure wrong up front, then if there's an issue, you have, limited ability to fix it. So fortunately, that has been very rare in our loan portfolio.
I see. Sounds very prudent way of selecting a procedure, because you have really a lot of factors to consider when you choose EB-5 project, because in general in other projects you don't have to consider the job creation and the length of the time you have to use the money, and all that has to go in. And I am so amazed about that rate.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let me ask you about the Rural TEA project, because one of the Civitas's EB-5 project is Rural project. How long does it usually take for I-526E application to be approved for Rural TEA investment projects?
Well, the answer to that question seems to be evolving just in the last few weeks.
Exactly, because this is a new thing since 2022, from last year.
That's right, from the law that passed last year.
Right.
So we have heard, from industry sources, that there have been approvals that have taken 11 months. Then a little bit more recently, one that took 9 months, and then very recently, one that took only 3 months.
3 months.
At this point, it's too early to say that this is the standard, because we don't know yet. There's not enough data points to sort of assume that that's going to be the standard. What it does suggest, in my opinion, is that the Immigration Service is trying to comply with the timelines that they were given by the Reform and Integrity Act that passed last year. My hope is that this will, be consistent, but I think it's going to take a little more time.
I think they are sticking to their promises, at least for that.
That certainly is the hope.
For Civitas project, we do have approvals from Rural TEAs, don't you?
Not yet.
Not yet.
It's
okay.
because the project is very new.
I see.
So all the investors in this project just filed in the last 2 months. So it's just happening now. So it's too early to tell for our particular project.
Right. But other data collected from other
in
rural
the industry
TEAs.
yeah, exactly.
Right, I see. It is based upon the new law that passed last year, but please tell us more specifically the reasons why Rural TEA gets approved faster.
Sure. As you said, the Reform and Integrity Act created new categories of TEA investment, including rural, and it created an incentive for investors to place their capital into rural qualified projects. And the incentive takes the form of two things. One is that there's a set aside, there's a 20% of the visas that are allocated each year are set aside for those projects.
Right.
And then the second part is that there's expedited processing time. And that's what we're seeing with these approval times.
Right, the priority processing, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So those are new that came with the law last year.
I'm glad they came up with that new break, because there are a lot of different needs for different investors, and those investors can weigh their benefits, and they can make a decision to invest in a good rural project.
Exactly.
And benefit the fast processing from it. What is the biggest challenge to lead your company in this EB-5 industry, just for the EB-5 industry perspective, please?
For me, this actually has not really changed since the beginning, since the founding of the firm. The biggest challenge, the hardest thing, is finding the right projects. We spend a huge amount of time and effort screening potential investments. And particularly now that we have the rural incentive, there's a reason why investment in rural America is difficult. It's more difficult than
That's why there are more benefits.
Right, that's
right.
exactly.
That's why we have to weigh.
But it also means that it's that much more important for us to understand the risk associated with that investment.
Right.
Because they're definitely not all equal.
Right.
So between identifying an opportunity and then structuring it in a way that we're comfortable with, that we think our investors should be comfortable with, we only end up actually transacting on about 2% of the investments that we look at a given year.
Oh, so if 100 developers come to you, only 2 gets
Only 2 will end up
selected.
being actually transacted.
So that was my last question, and though it's not in here, let me just ask you something more casually.
Yeah, of course.
This is the first time of your visit to Selena, and give us briefly how you felt.
Impressed is the short answer. It's very impressive. Everything from where we are sitting to, I was commenting to my colleague that the number of awards and accomplishments that are documented, in the company's history is considerable. So I'm really looking forward to deepening our partnership and continue to collaborate.
Likewise, I and we are really deeply looking forward to working with Civitas Capital Group in the future, many more projects.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.